Hello there. Welcome to Friday Social Live with me, Robert Ohato. I'm bringing my favorite tool, my favorite intuitive tool back in the house. This Friday, we're talking all about what is happening in the archetypal field, both in us, outside of us, etc. Yep, it's HoloKompass Astrology time. So let me just give everything a minute to get settled in here, make sure I am streaming and that you are here. Everyone give a shout out wherever you're from. What's going on? Let me know. I'm also just going to make sure, I'm going to check here. Olive Murray's in the house. We got Cheryl May and Boschman. Nice to see you guys on YouTube. We're streaming on YouTube and also on Facebook. So while you guys are queuing up and saying hi, hey, Amber Nolan, awesome. I'm glad you guys are here. Apparently I am streaming and everything's fine. I always feel nervous because I don't have another monitor. I got to get that set up sometime to know whether I'm live or not. So listen, let me get you teased into the content today. I'm sure you've been feeling it. I mean, the thing about when we look at astrology, you know, and what I call holocompass astrology, which is kind of my branding on how I work with astrology in a very unique, I think, intuitive, archetypal, and quantum way. We're living it. This isn't something that's out there in the sky that we just look at and go with a bunch of adjectives and definitions and stereotypes. This is the energetics of life. This is the energetics of life in motion. And I want you to image this because this is very real to me. This is how I see this. I want you to image the Earth, and for that matter, the whole solar system, as a living energy grid, a living energy pattern. Now, there's a lot of people that don't believe in astrology at all, and I'm never here to convince anyone otherwise, but give me 5 minutes in a room with you, I bet I'll have you thinking about it. But I would say that, you know, a lot of people don't believe it because of how it's portrayed through a lot of medieval models of stereotypes, adjectives, and causation, where the planets cause things to happen. That's not my model at all. And I get where in the medieval era that evolved out, because I think people were just struggling to live and survive pestilence and war and, you know, these things that could get your head chopped off. You know, it was a very different time. And they began on the backs of the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, all these people that had amalgamated this system together in what we now know as modern day astrology, Western astrology. And that was all mapped through synchronicity. What they did is they just sat and watched the sky and they watched events unfold in life. They watched what they were living. And they had made this correlation, this sort of mystical correlation between, hey, when Mars is over here, this seems to happen. The archetypal energy of the Earth's field produces an event that's martial. When there's an eclipse, which is something I'm going to talk about, there seems to, depending on where the eclipse is and all the energies involved, there seems to be this sort of interruption of the Earth's pattern, of our patterns, of our process through an event, through interior movement. So the ancients just, and this was a time, you got to remember, we can't even imagine what it was like to be alive back then, because they didn't have what we have now to distract us. They were just glued to the night sky. They oftentimes didn't have artificial light. So they could see these things really clearly, and they were really, in a sense, at one with the synchronistic movement of cycles of time in their energetics. And they began to, they wouldn't have said this, but looking back, this is what I say, they begin to map what are the fundamental creative energetic cycles and laws here on Earth. They really did. And if you approach astrology this way, it opens up a whole new area of perception and how to use it as yes, a tool of synchronicity, but also a tool of fate and destiny, a tool that helps you understand, if you will, energetic weather patterns, archetypal cycles, and how you know, being born as a mortal here, are fused into those. We all are fused into time here. No one gets out of that. And we're also subject to, you know, we're so narcissistic, we think oftentimes that it's all about us, right? Us humans. We don't ever stop to think about the Earth itself has its own psyche. The Earth itself has its own timing and energetics. The Earth itself has its own cycles, which are archetypal, its own evolutionary process. We're just visitors. We're just visiting in this, you know, creative experiment here. The Earth is a much larger player than we ever give her credit for. But when you take a step back and get cosmic and you go, wait a minute, I'm embedded with this Earth's matrix. I took my first breath into this human body, and when I did, I fused in to its cycles. I fused into its history and that the momentum of that karma. I fused into the Earth's process. And I'm along for the ride. That's fate. That's fate. You're along for the ride. Just because you don't like cloudy, stormy weather doesn't mean the Earth cares. So what you can do is decide, well, how am I going to work with that lightning? How am I going to work with that tornado? How am I going to work with that sunny day? How am I going to work with a rain season? Now, these are weather metaphors, but they are also something that's very accurate in terms of, if you extrapolate, psychic energetic metaphor. Because that's what these cycles show. They show numerous things all at the same time in synchronicity and holographically. They show the Earth's weather, the psychic field, what it's doing, the evolutionary pressures of that archetypal movement that we feel in us because we're here. We feel that in us. It's in us and out there. It's both and. So when we see, as I'm going to talk about shortly here, an eclipse occur, that eclipse is happening in you too. It's not just happening in the sky. It is an energetic statement of something in process in you, in us, in culture, in society. That's what it means now to move around in a holographic, spherical way to see life. You see it as a sphere of connectivity. Now, the medieval people, when they were mapping astrology, it wasn't spherical. It was mechanical. It was cause and effect happened in a, something acted on something and caused something dynamic, which is a facet of creative law, but not the whole picture. It's not spherical enough to be the whole picture. So when I approach astrology, and you have to keep this in mind, because every time I get a little frustrated with people when they import what they think astrology is into my classroom, and it won't fly here. That's not what I'm talking about. I may slip into causative language and talk about this lunar eclipse that's ahead in Sagittarius, sort of emanating an energetic. But that's not exactly accurate. It's just speaking about an energetic that's happening through synchronicity. So as long as you keep that straight, you can use causative language a little bit because it's more illustrative. But at the same time, you got to be aware. You got to stay in the driver's seat of co-creation here, folks, or you're going to opt into victim consciousness and victim-based astrology, and that is not what I'm talking about. So yes, we are in the soup of weather patterns, energetic cycles, much larger than our free will, much larger than our likes and dislikes, much larger than us, than our power. And if you studied astrology with me, as many of my students have, by the time I'm done with you, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. And that's what got me into this. It wasn't I wanted to study some woo-woo cool thing. It is so empirically spot on if you see it through what I'm saying, that it really does blow your mind. The timing, it just blows your mind. So I hope I've piqued some interest here as we go into some of the dynamics that are going on right now. In the meantime, let me see what you guys are doing. We've got Linda Skull. Hey, Linda, how are you, sweetheart? We've got Kristantina Pavoni. Robin, how are you? Gil, okay, everyone's in the house. So I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff. And just so you're aware, I don't normally talk about this because I do a lot of really deep work with this stuff inside my premium membership. So I have a Your Intuitive Edge premium membership that we've got a lot of people in. And I just finished this really badass module on Saturn in Aquarius, which is a 2.5-year cycle that we're in right now. And spent hours upon hours going deep into all of what that's about. So if you're wondering why, I used to do this more often, I think more in live streams and online, but I think this is better served in the depth that I teach it inside of my membership. And that's why I don't really say a lot here anymore about it. But just so you know, it's not that I shut up or stop talking about it. Oh no, we're doing some deep stuff in that membership. So I'm telling you that because the membership doors are opening in a month. If you want to join, they only open twice a year. Just keep that in mind. Okay, Let's see who's in the, hey, we've got Zap Time. Well, hello, Zap Time. She's one of my students, in fact. Okay, I'm drinking a mixture of grape juice. No, grapefruit juice and orange juice. I don't know. I always tell you guys this, but anyway, that's what it is. So what I was saying before is you've probably been feeling a bit out of sorts, energetically off. And that's the word, a little bit off. And that can vary in intensity depending on who you are and what's going on. But there is something in the air, literally. There's something in the psychic field, some movements going on. And the thing that I look to often to illustrate this and teach from is what happens in our politics, what happens in our culture, what happens in society, because that's where it's on the big display. That's where you get to see these big displays of the archetypal dynamics in play. So need I say more? I mean, look at what's happening on display, in news media and in our world right now. There's so many things. And if you didn't catch this, you can, watch it on demand on YouTube or Facebook. YouTube's probably easier to access. Go to my channel. But I did this real deep dive, 2 hours into the energetic nature of truth. And I did a whole breakdown of how do you intuitively know something is true? What does it actually take for you to be that sharp? What do you have to get past to intuitively read something and see the truth of it? And that's more than you would think. It's far more than you could ever imagine. So go watch that. But what I want to say is, if you didn't see it, if you did see it, that just evolves further here today, because we're looking at this eclipse that's coming up in Sagittarius. And if there were any sign in astrology, any archetype in astrology that deals in truth as a force, as an archetype itself, it's Sagittarius. That is the sign, the archetype, the energetic in this field of life that has everything to do with intuition, seeing what's true, and understanding, as I mapped in my previous social live, the different levels of truth. There's not just one level of truth, there's multiple dimensions of truth, and they all interrelate. And that is the providence of Sagittarius. That is absolutely the providence of Sagittarius. So we've got this eclipse coming up next week. It's going to happen before I see you next Friday, so I'm doing it now. I'm talking about it now. And we've got Saturn. There's so many planets going on right now. We've got Saturn in Aquarius stationing retrograde for its first retrograde cycle in Aquarius. And we've got, right behind all of this, Mercury going retrograde on the 29th in Gemini. So I'm going to sort of break it down a little bit. And I was hoping I actually have a sort of a pseudo image to show you of the chart for this retrograde. The software I'm using doesn't exactly let me graciously shift to a full screen version. So I'm going to still be actually on it. But anyway, you'll get to see the chart while I talk about a few things here. But what is this? Why should you care? Like, what does this all mean? Why should you even care? Well, there's many reasons why you should care. And let me frame why you should care through what I feel is the gravity, the base gravity of the astrological model. Because you could look at any cycle, you could look at any, thing astrologically and go, well, why care? I mean, okay, Saturn's going retrograde. That's nice. Who cares? Mercury's going retrograde. And what I would say to you is this. Okay, well, imagine if you were going to go out and take a vacation and you were trying to assess where you were going to go in terms of its weather. Let's say you really wanted a sunny getaway and you wanted to go to Florida. You need some palm trees, you need some ocean vibes, you need some beach vibes. But you didn't think to look and see that it's actually hurricane season. You didn't look at the weather. You didn't really go, we probably shouldn't go during this time of year. That's when they have hurricane season. I'm probably not going to get that beach vacay that I was hoping for. Now, you get me? This is why you should care. Because if you've got plans, if you've been on a certain trajectory of thinking things are going to go a certain way, if you've got a certain sense of what you'd like to create to serve other people, you should absolutely care about everything I'm going to say next, 100%. Why would I say that? I say that because of this. Astrology speaks to mystical law. Now, mystical law is just what it is. It doesn't care if you don't believe in it. It really doesn't. It's just part of how creation works on the planet Earth. And for near as I can tell, in the whole cosmos. It doesn't care what you believe. It's a law. It's not, something you believe or something you believe in or don't believe in. It just does. It's what it does. It's just a truth of creation. So if I were to say to you, let me give you an example of a mystical law. Soul esteem. Something that when I was writing my first book, Transforming Fate into Destiny, popped into my head. That each of us has this divine base of worth. Period. End of sentence. There's nothing that'll diminish that worth. There's nothing that enhances that worth. It's just what's true. It's mystical law. You're enough. Period. Now, you may not believe you're enough. You may suffer from traumas that made you think you weren't enough. You may be patterned and programmed in a certain way that has you more in the low esteem end of everything. That can all be true, absolutely. But you're still enough. And no one takes that away. No one gives that to you. It is a facet of your nature, period. End of sentence, mystical law. So obviously I can say soul esteem. Oh, I have value and worth at the level of my soul. Doesn't that sound amazing? And you can go, yeah, Robert, so into that, but you don't feel it. It's not active in you. Your psyche isn't in a certain feng shui or orientation to allow that law, electricity, influence in your choices and perceptions. So part of healing and doing inner work is to rearrange inner furniture so that law can flow through you. You don't make it happen. It's already there. It's whether you move things around enough for it to actually electrify your life. Mystical law is no different. Astrology speaks to mystical law. How? Through the law of holism. Holism means everything is interconnected, all is one. Now, a lot of people think that's a great, wonderful mystical truth to throw around through platitudes on the internet and through Facebook and different memes here and there. But it ain't so great when you got to look at someone who's done something really awful and remember, all is one. They also have value. They're also part of life. All is one isn't a truth that we just get to, fly banners with whenever we're feeling great. It's a truth when we have to look a murderer in the eye. It's a truth when we have to look at something really dark too. Frankly, it's an inconvenient truth most of the time. And I think a lot of our journey is about, do we live in alignment to it? How do we do that? And that's a whole nother discussion for another time. And that's something I've really talked a lot about in my Love Rebel work, where you've got to actually, mystical law and all is one doesn't mean you suffer a fool or don't have boundaries. It means as you set a boundary, you recognize that boundary is not just for your protection, it's to teach the violator something about mystical truth as well. Now, astrology shows how different energetics in this hologram of creation interrelate and create our reality. It shows us the fate and destiny forces of life that are just creatively spinning and moving through creation here on Earth and creating. It shows you the weather, the energetic weather patterns of Earth. Now, what's very fascinating about this, and this is where the co-creator in you needs to hear me, because there's fate. There's a lot of fate in there. You're not controlling the planetary energetics any more than you're controlling how the sun rises and sets. But what you can do, my dear co-creator, is you can decide, you know what? It's a windy day. I'm going to set sail. It's a great day to put my sail up. I've been wanting to go across that ocean for a while. And lo and behold, this creative wind's blowing through. Let's do this. You can do that. You can ride the waves of the laws, of the cycles. You can harness their energetics. And you can start to understand that those energetics are coded into your own soul contract and that they are responsible for all the timing of everything in your life. If there's something in you that's meant to be born, it is born through cycles of time. So doesn't it make sense to want to know them? To want to know how do these flow? What energies are here? What psychic weather's afoot? I'm thinking of launching a business. I am thinking of having a baby. I'm thinking of adopting a puppy, which I just did. I'm thinking, yeah. And I'll tell you, many of you know this. I've worked with Fortune 500 companies. I've worked with Oprah's team. I've worked with many people. And this is exactly where my skill set is badass. Because if you're a company coming to me and you want to launch a product, I can tell you the winds aren't favorable. I wouldn't set sail. I wouldn't do that. But not only that, if you're anyone, it positions you in a certain space. This is one level of, there's many elements to everything in astrology, but this is one level to go, okay, I'm going to set sail now. The wind's blowing. Or, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to set sail because I'm scheduled for a dark night process right now. I'm going through a death rebirth cycle. It is in my contract. The time has come. So it's not time for me to start something new. In fact, it's time for something to die in me. So that something new can actually happen. I think that's the new. It's not the new. It's my old patterns claiming that this is going to be new, but it won't be. So there's many layers here. I'm kind of pinging around to get your ears perked for this full moon lunar eclipse. Now, let's talk about what eclipses are. And I will, from time to time, chime in with astrology on these because lunations for me are pulse points. They're like little snapshots, creative snapshots of kind of what's happening in the holographic field and pulling it all together with the sun and the moon. So every eclipse involves the sun and the moon and the earth to some degree. Now, this eclipse is coming up. What it is astronomically, it's the sun. So this is the sun, this is the moon, moving into an alignment that's opposite each other. And then what happens is the earth, which is in the middle here, gets in the middle and blocks the sun's light to the moon, eclipses. So it's really the moon that's getting eclipsed by the earth, interrupting the flow of light from the sun. Now, to understand what all that means, we have to go to your symbolic mind. We have to go to the law of synchronicity because it absolutely means something. And then we have to go into, okay, what's the sun in? In this case, the sun is going to be in Gemini and the moon is in Sagittarius. So imagine the archetypes of Gemini and Sagittarius having this discussion, this creative dialogue with each other in the psychic field of Earth, in you, in me. But something's different. It's an eclipse. It's the Earth and its energetics itself saying, oh, don't forget about me. You create in my arena. You create under the umbrella of my timing and my laws. This is my psychic field and my psychic air you're breathing. So the earth interrupts the energetic flow to recalibrate and ground the creative options ahead. Now that happens, that's just the baseline that happens in you. So if you were to take what I said in the last social live, all about truth, which is that full moon in Sagittarius, and then the sun in Gemini, which I'm going to talk about Gemini's archetype shortly here for a little bit, and then start to connect into, okay, Gemini is the mind. Sagittarius is the intuition. There's some sort of pattern interruption going on here around both, because what we're being exposed to is how we are misaligned with the mind and intuition. We're not aligned, we're misaligned. And the earth saying, yeah, you are. And I'm suffering the brunt of the karma of that. There's a certain lack of holism in your understanding of the mind and intuition that you need to absorb now for your next potential to be born, for your next vision to clarify, for your next true choice to become clear, for your next action, your next pivot, whatever. And this happens all to set off. This is what kicks off our Mercury retrograde. This kicks it off. And this energy and its message and its instruction will flow throughout the entire Mercury retrograde, which goes all the way till late June. So this is happening in you. It's happening out there. And it's really this chance for us to look at our patterns, which have become just reaction or responsive and automatic, and how we've been creating from that instead of conscious intentionality, or from our grace, or from the magic that we carry in us. So if you look at your life, I want to bring you into the fold. And, my goal is I have a passion for teaching, my way of working with astrology, but I also want you to apply this. This has got to be applicable to you. It's got to be actionable. It's got to be something that you can take into your interior and do some alchemy with. So I want you to look at your life, think about where you are, where you've been. And I do encourage everyone, re-reference my last social life. It is on demand if you want to go deeper, because I'm not going to go into 2 hours of that now. I'll trust you'll go back and listen. But this is about, okay, I've got to understand my relationship to the truth. I've got to understand my relationship, and let's bring in Gemini. So Gemini, everyone thinks Gemini is, the twins, and it's, all about duality, and it's the ugly and pretty twin. It's the good and evil twin. And that is somewhat true. There is, in its archetype, that's what it comes from, is this idea of, yin, yang, male, female, positive, negative, light, dark. I mean, everything you can think of that exists in our world in polarity. At least on the surface, it does. But the deeper teaching of Gemini and the deeper evolution of its pattern is not to stay polarized in duality. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's to understand that between light and dark are lots of shades. Between black and white is a whole rainbow of color. And Gemini's journey is about getting curious about all of it. Being a student, being teachable, being existing in curious wonder of, wow, look at all these facets of the divine. Oh my God, I'll never be done learning. I'll never be done understanding all the different elements of creation. Yes, I love this. Gemini, let's read 5 books at one time. Let's just keep learning. There's this drive in its core, the core of its archetype, to somehow shift out of our human journey of polarization and polarity into the rainbow of creation. That is the real holographic nature of it all, the multidimensional nature of it all. So all of us are vulnerable to black and white thinking, either or thinking. In my own practice for myself is that if I feel like I'm stuck on a choice, or if I feel like I'm stuck in a perception anywhere in my life, I'll oftentimes ask, well, what's the both and of this? And I will task myself to find a both and space to be within a situation. What's the both and? That's very good Gemini medicine. Why would I? And let me tell you why that's incredible medicine for your intuition. As soon as you shift out of the either or lockdown you might be in, and you go, well, what's the both and here? Your heart gets to activate. And what else? Your intuition. Your angels get to speak to you more clearly. They don't have to go through your both and polarization anymore. So the shadow side of Gemini would be fundamentalist thinking, but that's also true of Sagittarius. But in Gemini, it's a fundamentalist lockdown into logic and into mental structure as the only reality. In Sagittarius, it's a moral lockdown about the meaning of life goes into either or. And that's the fundamentalist religious zealot. Whereas now we're seeing the fundamentalist politician or political point of view that's things are either or, you're left or right. Well, what if you're an independent? What if you don't subscribe to left or right? What if you think, wait, I think for myself, you don't tell me what I am. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're an independent, your intuition is going to be a lot sharper. And if you need a read on something, it's going to come a lot cleaner. You won't have yourself hung up on toxic shadow tribalism and its voice in your head. You won't have yourself hung up on a religion that says, well, this is the only way to look at reality and the divine. There's no other way. There is no other God. Oh, really? So this is where these two are, the sun is in Gemini. So the sun is saying, hey, I'm taking this little tour for about 30 days through this sign to reinvigorate its deeper dimensions in you, to reactivate this creative facet of life, this creative law and pattern of life. Duality is absolutely also real to some degree, but it is not the only reality. It's part of reality. And the moon comes around and says, and you got this cosmic kind of activation moving into play, a synchronistic activation that says, okay, we've got to do a couple things here. One, a full moon always represents the illumination of something that was hidden before. That whole moon is lit up by the sun. We're going to see a side of something, the side facing the sun, that previously was in the dark. So something in the Sagittarian arena, which is law, which is truth, which is intuition, which does include base level human morality, what's right, what's wrong. Are we going to go right versus left or right versus wrong here? What are we doing? And that activates. And as that activates, then now I got to bring in another big part of this discussion that's in the actual chart, the actual moment of this eclipse. So I'm going to put the chart up here. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to warn you because you're still going to see two sides of me. This is the best I can do with this software. I actually delayed the whole stream for a minute so I could see if I could actually do this another way. I could not. So let me do this for you. All right, so check this out. This is the actual chart, and I'm over here. Now, if you don't know astrology, you're looking at this, it probably looks kind of cool, and you're like, okay, that's cool, but what does it mean? And that's exactly what I'm going to tell you. But if you know astrology, then you're going to be like, okay, cool. I can see where all these energetics are. This shows the energetics. It shows the energetics of the field. So if you know astrology, what you're going to see in this is that Jupiter, which is stationing at 1 degree Pisces to go retrograde, is in a T-square with the moon and also the sun, which are opposite. A full moon is always in opposition, always. The moon's exactly opposite the sun. That's why it shines full. But we got Jupiter and Pisces up in here, and I want to talk about that energy and what that actually means, and it's a big deal. And then through that, I want to teach you come back to the idea of holism and astrology. So what Jupiter has brought into the conversation is this need to see with mystical eyes. This need to understand, yeah, all is one. And you know what? You're not living like it. You're not treating your neighbor like it. You're not treating yourself like it. You think you are, and then you get on Facebook or Twitter and you call people names. You think that's all is one shining its brightest? Really? Is that the best your grace can do? Is that what we got going now? So Jupiter steps in and says, I've got to, in a very rough and tumble, face your shadow way, give you a little bit of an overview mystically of where all is one is not integrated into perception, thought, choice. And if it's not there, your heart's shut down. Astrology is always speaking to the holism of life. It's a system that speaks to the energetic holism and the creative play of all the energies that are always moving around in an evolutionary pulse. But their center gravity will forever and is always holism. What do I mean by holism? I mean that you can't ping one part of the web without the whole web resonating from that. It's a mystical law. This is something that I think our environment, ergo Earth in the middle here of this eclipse, is screaming at us. And what we see in our culture, in ourselves, is that we each have our own inner karmic spin team that's there to keep spinning a story about our karma that is not true. Well, this happens because the left did it, or the right did it, or this, that. I mean, you see it all the time now. Instead of going, what's actually true? What do I actually generate into this life? What am I responsible for? And how am I going to look holism in the eye with this karmic spin I have going? Because here's the thing you got to know about karma. It just does what it does. You can't actually spin it. The consequences just produce, not to punish you or any of us per se. It's to teach you how to co-create in harmony with holism. When you don't do that, you suffer. We all suffer. And so in whatever arena of your own destiny and your own grace and your own call to live in a more true alignment with mystical truth and law, you're getting called right now. This eclipse is saying to everybody on some meta level, hey, you got to start thinking about where you are in relationship with holism. Are you the Catholic that goes to confession every week, but then sins all other 6 days? Because that's kind of how you're acting. And you think you're absolved of your karma you're not absolved of anything. You just generated karmic factors, free radicals into life that will manifest into results. And wherever you're feeling me say this, you got to sort of micro it down to you. Do you have your own inner Fox News or CNN spin team or whatever? Do you have your own inner way of self-selecting truth? Do you just pick and choose what truths, don't call you out on your shadow or make you face yourself or make you face your lack of compassion or how unkind you can be to yourself and other people? Where are you at with this? This is an interesting time to be alive, because with the internet and this is a lot of the Saturn Aquarius energy. With the internet, we've been given more options to lie to ourselves. We've been given more options to spin karmic truth. We've been given more options to self-select truth and also more options to box into perceptions that our tribe chooses for us, whether that's political or otherwise. You, as a spiritually mature adult, if you want to really harness the co-creative juice of the mystical grid of life, this is important work right here. So let me frame this another way and give you the pressure involved and why you should care. If you don't somehow continue to cultivate a more holistic, mystical way to be in the world, what you lose out on is you lose out on access to resources that the holism of the world has. As soon as you micro down to a power grid in yourself, for whatever reason, as soon as you break down into that, and everything gets fundamentalist, and everything gets either or, and everything is they're bad, I'm good, or I'm good, they're bad. As soon as you do that, you've just actually cut yourself from the greater pulsing energetics of life itself and co-creation. You're like saying to the whole electrical grid of life, hey, my little power station here in my town's all I need. And then, lo and behold, you run out of power. And you're wondering, well, what do I do now? I'm out of power. And what we're being taught right now is, well, if you're out of power, go steal someone else's power. Belittle them, make them feel bad, call them a name on Twitter, go take their power. That's dark grid, dark magic stuff. We're not being taught, well, maybe it's time to connect to the greater good of life. Maybe it's time to realign with mystical truth. Maybe it's time to realign with a greater sense of, all is actually one. Let me say it another way. In the readings I've done and what I've seen in people, and this is true for my own life, those that could pull a miracle down from heaven, what gave them that, green light, was that they were more plugged in to mystical law than someone who couldn't. They were more plugged into, hey, everyone has value. Everyone's equal. They were more plugged into, hey, that person over there is me. That homeless person is me. That person over there who's stuck in a conspiracy theory, that's me too. And I've got to find a way to breathe and live and create with it all. I've got to find a way to know everyone got their passport stamped to incarnate on planet Earth. Everyone. So I've got to find a way to do alchemy here. If I see dark, how can I shift that to light? If I see dark in me, how can I hug that in and give it more love so it lights up? So it comes to the light side. The energetics of this eclipse are kind of interesting. On one hand, Gemini is more of a personal archetype. It's your personal mind. Sagittarius goes a bit broader because it's where the mind falls short and intuition takes over. There's a torch pass. Hey, the mind goes, I can't see spherically. That's not how I'm organized. It's not within my power. Intuition, here's the torch. Go look around. So Sagittarius takes a look around through symbolic spherical vision and sight. And once you start journeying from Sagittarius to Capricorn, to Aquarius, to Pisces, you're in collective territory now. You're in collective, energetic, co-creative dynamics. You're becoming transpersonal in the patterns. And I think this is one of the biggest lessons I'm seeing play out for us all personally, as we have been taught by COVID-19, is that you can't see life. I mean, you can. I'll tell you what the consequences are if you do. But if you don't want a karmic 2x4, you cannot see life only at a personal myopic level of tribal whatever or narcissism. You won't get the support of the holism of life on your side. You won't get the green light to pull down a miracle. Because you've said to life, I'm the only thing that matters. My race is the only thing that matters. My political party is the only thing that matters. You don't. That's one way to go. It's not sustainable. And there's a hell of a lot of hard karma that comes with it. So you want to know what this eclipse is? It's what we are living. Once again, astrology is what we live. It's just a synchronistic, symbolic way for us to go, oh, that's actually what's going on. There it is. It's a call to understand, with lots of love for our human messiness, our need to allow our grace to do better. Whenever I get into arguments with people on the internet, if I ever do, because I usually don't engage, but whenever I have in the past, and they start going to the shadow and using shadow language, which is usually looks like name calling, looks like somehow trying to disempower me by saying something about me or what I'm teaching or whatever. The only thing I usually have to say to them is that the best your grace can do? And if it is, it is. Hey, straight up, yeah, that's the best my grace can do. That I don't have any more aperture or voltage to light up life any other way other than being a cyberbully with no face pick to actually stand in my bullying and put a face to what I do here and be accountable. So yeah, that's all I got. Okay. And now I can block you. I'm glad I know that now. You don't belong in my classroom. That's not what I cultivate here. I really do actually genuinely wish you the best, but I don't engage with that. I was a gay kid bullied. I don't do bullying. I don't do this stuff. When your grace can do better, maybe we'll meet up again. So I would offer you that not just as a maybe shadow dancing maneuver online, but for a way to own your own honor code. This Jupiter and Pisces square is saying exactly that. Is that the best our grace can do? Is this it? Is this all we got? And whatever we do next answers that question. Not what we say, not what we believe, but what we do next will answer that question. And karma will ensue. We will live the consequences of where our grace meters are. So this eclipse to me is synchronistically incredibly powerful. And usually with eclipses, there are events connected. And each event, now you're going to hear me say this, you're going to look at each event and go, God, is this the best our grace can do? Really? This is it. Wow. And I would expect next week when all this lights up, as we have the eclipse, which is going to happen on May 26th. So let me just frame this for you. Let me frame this up. Let me tee all everything up I'm saying. Saturn has been in Aquarius more or less since the beginning of 2021. It kind of moved in December, but let's just keep it tight. Now, it's going to go retrograde in its first retrograde cycle. It'll do another retrograde cycle in 2022 in Aquarius. I did, like I said, a huge module on Saturn in Aquarius. If you're interested in that, get into my membership when it opens up in a month. I'm not going to do that here, but I will offer you this thread. What I feel the Aquarian energetic is about overall is this. What influences how you see? So what informs perception for you? How and where are you at with your mind? Do you know what spherical vision is? Do you know what it means to see and think spherically? And I can hear someone say, sure, and then the next thing out of their mouth, it's a 2D either or statement. It's not spherical. And here's what you need to know. Spherical vision, spherical thought, spherical perception. This idea of seeing things as a sphere of interconnectedness. It's a new skill. It's part of this new emerging, if you will, psychological, psychospiritual technology, mystical technology we are now called to develop if we want to make it. So if you say, well, yeah, I totally see spherically, but I cannot even begin to say that burning fossil fuels is why the climate's changing. You just shut yourself out of spherical vision. If you can't see all the factors that have caused climate change and actually acknowledge that that's one of them, no, that's not spherical. And we'd have to go deeper into your psyche to understand why can't you see that and honor. Of course, carbon emissions have been influential. Of course. And it's not the only influence, absolutely not. So the things we have, the Saturn retrograde ahead is about all of us having to really see if we have enough backbone to be visionaries, to see more. And Saturn's about karmic accountability. You see more to own more of your karmic responsibility in how you create life and the world. That's the way perception can serve holism. That's how it does it. Perception to see more, just to see how great you are and inflate your wounded ego, that's not service. That is not power. That could be feeding a fire-breathing dragon. So this Aquarian era, another element here with Saturn is we've got to mature with our technology. On one hand, all of the messiness we see on Facebook, Twitter, these channels now where people are so awful to each other in ways I can't even imagine ever saying to someone half the stuff that's said. But part of that I also see as well, we've got to grow up. The internet is a place that could magnify love, kindness, care. We could solve so many of our collective problems with the internet by communicating with each other in real ways that are based on light and mystical vision, and that we all are interconnected. We could do that. And yet we have vested interests that don't want that at all. It shuts down their shareholders' returns. I mean, are you kidding me? No, don't let them talk about climate change and new technologies. And no. Get the voter down to one issue, trigger them into one issue, collapse them down. Don't let them go holographic. Don't you dare. And they'll think for themselves. Hell no. Say the triggering thing. Say it. Get them to vote on the trigger. And so, this is about us maturing. We have to mature with this this new Aquarian energy and age and its technology. If we want to live in the power of holism, the nourishment of holism, and start to continue to grow into one world consciousness. Now, let me just call out something here. I've talked about one world consciousness before, and someone projected onto me some bullshit about me saying it was a new order or some. No, I don't mean that. One world consciousness means we see things spherically as interconnected to one earth. That if one country does something, the whole rest of the world is affected. It doesn't mean some superior, whatever, Third Reich crap. It's not that. It is rather, no, we have to start understanding that every decision made by each of us affects everyone else. Mystical law, mystical truth. Karma, spin it all you want. I ain't interested. And nor should you be, honestly. So this is about, we've got to mature. You got to grow up in a way that's about, I've got to be mature enough to be a responsible, spiritually mature adult. I've got to stop projecting my crap on other people and collapsing down to just one triggering issue as if it's the whole reality that I should vote on, let alone make choices through. If you can't become more sophisticated than that, then there's just karma for that. That's all. And it's going to suck. And not only that, not just for you, it sucks for everybody. That's the thing. We're in a super karma now. Now, that said, this Saturn retrograde starts on the 23rd. Now, next up is the eclipse. I just talked a lot about that. It's energetics. It's meta-energetics. And then that's followed by Hermes, our messenger of the gods, going retrograde on the 29th through June 22nd. Now, I'm doing a deep dive into my membership on this cycle shortly, but let me give you a few threads. I think what this is about, and what you have to understand what Mercury retrogrades are anyways, an energetic and technical cycle. And it really, the way to track that is to go back to mythology and what Hermes was. Hermes was the messenger of the gods. So Hermes, let me say it in archetypal, intuitive terms. Hermes delivered spherical messages. He spoke, why do I say spherical? He spoke on behalf of the other energetics of life. So Mercury going retrograde in Gemini is this synchronistic cycle kicking in that's saying, look, we got to pause out here in the Gemini area of your life, which is your mind, how you think, how you label, how you either or, how you black or white things, how you shut down learning, because, someone said this, how you're closed off to information, how you don't have a discernment of what's true or false. Yeah, I got to pause you all out. And we've got to go to your shadow. Every Mercury retrograde is a shadow journey. This is, the psychopompus of Hermes. This is the journey to the underworld. What do I mean by shadow? It's going to the part of your psyche where you have shoved stuff away, perhaps, but it's also the part of your psyche where your potential exists, where your what you could become next is hanging out. So the shadow isn't just, our repressed negative traits and sides and patterns and behaviors and how we repress stuff to maintain this ego structure of being a good person. So if I happen to be narcissistic or selfish, or if I happen to be a bully or a bitch, I don't want to see that about myself. That goes to the shadow. I make you the bully or bitch. I don't want to look at it. You're the one. Not me. No. That's a classic defense of the wounded ego, and using the shadow to protect the very low esteem you have. And there's a paradox in doing shadow work. You have to actually go mystical and hotline in some soul esteem, because to do shadow work, you have to know you're enough no matter what you see in your shadow. People don't go to their shadow because they think, well, if I see something bad, I'm a bad person. No, you're not. You're still enough. You're just empowered with a little bit more what's under the hood of you. And you can tweak, do some mechanics down there and tweak some things around so you run your life a little better if you want, or not. Hug a few dragons, bring some more love. The parts in your shadow need more love, not more judgment. So I digress. But every Mercury retrograde is a journey to that part of you. So there's many dynamics to Mercury retrograde. That's one of them. And maybe you've heard some superstitions around, well, don't make decisions during Mercury retrograde. Don't start anything new. That's actually not accurate per se. There can be some accuracy in it, but let me tell you what differentiates superstition from the mechanical truth of a Mercury retrograde, the intuitive truth. Why would you not want to make new decisions during a Mercury retrograde? One reason might be that you're about ready to go into a cycle that's going to reveal more information to you about your life, about your potential, and about your shadow side. I think I'd want that information conscious before executing a new decision. Because if I had that information conscious, I might make a different decision. Now, there is some truth to it. Now, however, depending on your contract, your psyche, how this personally hits you, you might have a cycle that's hitting, let's say it's Mercury retrograde in Gemini, an area of your life where you were thinking about starting a new business. And this may not be so much, hey, don't do that yet. This may be, yeah, do it, but you're going to need to review some of the educational frameworks of your business. Got to dial that in. So start it, but just plan on a little dip of a learning curve in getting your business going. Hold back in that area. This is what it means to move from superstition to actual intuitive application of these cycles. So it really is going to come down to, okay, this I would say is going to be maybe perhaps universally true, if you will. You're going to get new information about some area of your life. Maybe pause out until you're clear on that area. Once you're clear on that area, now you can assess other areas as to whether or not you need to pause those up still. So this is a time where we're all going to go through this, and this is cultural. Watch culture, watch the political headlines, watch the news media, watch what's going on. You're going to see it's already in the room. You know why? The setup phase for this Mercury retrograde started on May 14th. So in my own country, what's being debated is what's true and what's false, what's fact, what's fiction. And some people are claiming what's actually false is true, even though they were on camera saying another thing just months ago. This is where we are. It's dangerous territory. It's ridiculously dangerous. This is what topples and finishes democracies. And, if we can't all agree on a shared reality, that's not good. That's really bad. If we can't all agree on a shared reality, we are in a reality war, folks. That's what it is. It's a reality war. I don't like that reality, so it doesn't exist. That's what some people are doing. Now, how guidable intuitively do you think you are if you can't be with reality? How can a miracle heal you if you're not even in reality? How can a miracle reach you? How could an angel or a divine intervention reach you if you're not even in reality? If I had cancer and I couldn't say I had cancer, it's stage 4. How the hell am I going to get a miracle to heal that? I can't even admit I have it. There's no possibility to engage the grace grids with, hey, I've got this terminal illness. Now, hey, might just be my time. But if it isn't, if you got some, miraculous, light you can shoot into me that can just give me another flow chart of service here, I'm in. That cannot come out of the mouth or heart of someone who can't look at what's happening in reality to their system. So this retrograde is going to ping just that in your life personally, in our collective lives together. And let's remember, what does it all serve? Holism. So what reality are you not in that's connected to the whole of life? Instead, you've opted for your wounded ego's version. And you can't heal there. Grace can't reach you there. All you'll do is go darker and darker and darker until you finally hit whatever bottom you hit. And might I add, there are some bottoms you never come back from. Ask any dead addict. So this is, it's a little extreme and very charged, but we really are, folks, we're in very dangerous energetics. And collectively. And I think that you have to then do the work of personally going into yourself and going, okay, well, where am I at? And everything Robert's saying, what feels true? What feels true? Where does it hit me? Where does it ping me? Where am I in either or thinking? And it's making me sick. Where am I in either or thinking? And it's not allowing me to see the spherical nature of reality. Where am I, and we all, I think, let me just say this too. I think we all deserve permission to come back to the light. Every single human being. But this is where we have free will. If a cult mentality hasn't already taken it, this is where we have free will. So this retrograde setup, every retrograde has a midpoint. So the setup's been through. So I want you to look at your life. This is what you're going to do. You're going to look at your life since the 14th of May. And you're going to sense personally for yourself where what I'm saying resonates. And resonates specifically with some themes that are coming up in your life. When you look at the setup phase for yourself, you want to look at things that are thematic. So, wow, in my marriage, we've been having this reality war, or we've been having this challenge of getting into either or thinking about each other, or our intimacy is shutting down because, we've gone to these polarized spaces in the marriage, just as an example of how to personalize this. This energetic, and then it gets personal to your own journey of destiny. If you're here to help people come to deeper self-acceptance as part of your journey in this life, if you're here to be a light worker, meaning bring light to dark spaces, might I add, well, then you got to understand the nature of the darkness. You've got to understand the nature of your own. And then if you understand that, you'll understand the kind of light needed. All right, this is the darkness of fundamentalist thought and thinking. It needs the light of intuitive spherical thinking. And that is something that comes through compassion, letting everything be okay. The dark can be okay. But there's a little caveat there. It's a karmic caveat. The dark can be okay, but it has its own karma. Do you want that karma? Says your soul contract, says your potential. The dark can be just fine. It's all part of God. But you're here to learn creation, intentionality, and how you want to do that. Do you want to just, create through the karmic forces of the dark? Because that's what you'll do then. It can be okay, but can also have devastating karmic effects. Do you want to shift? Do you want to pivot? What do you, it's going to be uncomfortable for you. You're going to have to let go of, your wounded ego's hold on being the center of your consciousness and opt for the soul. You in? Opt for this all as one truth. You in? It's uncomfortable. It's super inconvenient. And very honestly, triggering to go near. So, you in? Mystical holism, folks. Mystical holism. It's in the room. So I would have you reflect on your themes and your what does holism mean to you? Go into yourself and figure out what these things mean to you right now. I can present language, I can present ideas and perspectives, but ultimately, this is your system. You got to read it for yourself. It's about having your own intuitive edge, your own intuitive process, and being willing to, go in and look around. So that's kind of what's in the air. I know it's a little doom and gloom, but I also feel there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of light. And that we can, if we come together, my God, we'd be so powerful. If we could just get out of these factions into a shared reality and a shared concern for each other, we would be so freaking powerful. It'd be unbelievable. I want to take some questions. Bring it. So write your questions here. I'm going to drink some juice and we'll wrap it up. So anyway, following through with the stats while you guys write your questions for me. You're welcome, Nairi Dawn. Mary Jo. All right. That's the meta view. I mean, you have to, I want you to really take what I said and sense yourself personally in it. These are very collective, energetic zone. That's why they can feel so overwhelming. You might feel like your whole system's just like, oh my God, what is happening right now? All right. Richard Copeland's here. All right, Jackie Hum, how are you? So back to the stats though. So Mercury goes retrograde May 29th. All right, so capping it off. Saturn retrograde May 23rd. Boom. That actually goes till October 10th, by the way. Once again, that's all in my membership if you want to join. Then we go into the eclipse. Then that's on the 26th. Then we go 3 days later. It's like these each go 3 days apart. That's interesting. Then we go 3 days later on the 29th, the Mercury stations retrograde in Gemini until June 22nd. Remember, astrology is a tool of synchronicity. It really is. And I wanted to give you guys a little heads up. I'm doing a really incredible course on synchronicity this summer. I'm going to teach you about the psychic law of synchronicity and the difference between the synchronicity of destiny and the synchronicity of fate, and how you can actually generate through the psychic law of synchronicity either one. It's going to be really, really awesome. All right, let's see. Let's see what cues you guys got. Angela Woodenmeyer, let's talk victim perpetrator mentality. Yeah, any dualities are definitely something to explore right now. Okay. Okay, let's talk about Cecil Lim. I like this. How do you deal with people who are in the dark and doing their best to affect you? That's a good question. I'm a technician, so I want to get intuitively technical with you about people that are dark that want to dim you down. Let's technically name what they are. They're light dimmers, all right? That's what they are. So to handle a light dimmer in your life, you have to know why they want to dim you. Why do they want you to go dimmer? And there can be various reasons for that. Let me just go through a few. One is that your light illumines their shadow in a way they don't know how to be with. Let me say it another way. Doing readings, I saw this a lot in family systems where the child would be just at a soul level, a child that came in with a lot of light and would illumine the parents in their shadow. So the parents would do what they had to dim their child down, whether that was abuse, whether that was simply berating them, verbally, and making sure they always knew, the statements that you would hear, maybe you heard these as a kid, like, who do you think you are? That kind of like is another way of saying, hey, you're shining too bright, dim the hell down. It brings to mind the wicked queen archetype, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, and it better damn well not be one of my children. And what that is it's when you are, and this is one reason why those of us who hold light do attract dark. We are lighting things up around us. And if someone wants to keep their shadow hidden or can't look at what's in there or be with it in any compassionate way, their first reflex is to dim your brightness down. They're going to want to knock you down a few lumens. That's one move that might happen, and the mechanics of why is I don't know. I don't have the skill set to deal with my shadow. So that's exactly right. They don't. What you need to know about that kind of light dimmer is they don't have the skill set to deal with their shadow. You engaging with them in a shadow dance isn't going to really help. You don't have the power to get them to see and love their dark side. You don't. And if you know that, my question to you would be, okay, now what do you want to do? What I would just suggest is, this is where you got to leave the dance floor. And that can be done with lots of love. You can be like, listen, oof, you got a dark shadow there, and I am powerless for you to work on that, see that, approach it with any love. So I'm going to just leave the dance floor, and I'm going to wish you well and call on heaven to take it from here. Now, if I say that, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds kind of good. But what's true is there's another side of you that goes, ooh, I can't leave this dynamic. I can't leave this shadow dance. Part of me knows you're right, Robert, but I can't do it. Now we got to talk about you. We got to talk about what is the shadow payoff of you being in this shadow dynamic with this light dimmer. And the first place I'm going to go is to your esteem system. I want to know, what kind of shadow bump of esteem do you get? What do I mean by that? I mean, hey, listen, if that's a vampire and they're sucking your life force out of you, you're a blood donor. Why are you a blood donor? And by the way, vampires can only get into your house because you invite them in. How did you invite them in? Do you know that? Do you know that side of yourself? Do you know how your esteem system's actually running this whole shadow dance? Do you know that you actually like the fact they do bite your neck and take your blood? Because that means they need you. And your esteem operates such that to be needed makes you feel enough. Until you get somewhere in yourself where that violation, it's a violation, no longer gives you a shadow bump of esteem, you'll invite the next vampire in. So we always have to look at our own backside when it comes to where we are. Why is the light dimmer on our path? Why are we shadow dancing with them? Why can't they just have the last word and I just get the hell out of here? Why do I have to do the last name call or the last throwdown or the last quick comeback? I just can't leave clean. When you can leave clean, when you realize that is a vampire and I no longer want vampires in my life and I don't need the esteem bump of them needing my blood anymore, then it's over. That particular dimming dynamic will fade. Now, that's one version of light dimmers. Light dimmers will also want to take your actual life force and then recruit it to a dark agenda or dark grid. So if I'm someone, this happens politically at the political level all the time. A politician wants to take your life force. So they create, and I said this earlier, a one issue trigger that collapse. All I got to do is say abortion. Boom, I got you. No other issue is going to matter to you. I got you. I got your vote. I got your life force. Here we go. Now, here's what's true. Behind the scenes, I'm owned by, big pharma, or big oil. So I'm really actually serving them. You think I'm serving your abortion, issue. I'm not. That's just a cover story. Oh, sure, I'll play along. But the big truth is that I'm actually pushing through Congress one more agenda after another. So prescriptions are real expensive. So more natural lands get, turned into oil fields. Yeah, that's what I'm really doing. But okay, I got you. And all the while, you're connected to a dark grid that connects you right into a dark agenda karmically that you might not see. If you're collapsible that way into one issue, wow. And many are. And I don't judge that. I think people just don't see like that. They don't see the spherical nature of, and that can still matter to you and really truly be an issue that is connected to your heart. I'm not making that right or wrong at all. I'm saying this is a dynamic they've got down. They have focus groups to get this shit down. Are you kidding me? That's another form of light dimming. Or I can't be held accountable to all my bad karmic choices, so I need you to keep feeding energy to me. And I'll tell you whatever you want to hear. I'll embody your rage. I'll embody your sense of being left behind. I'll embody whatever. And by the time I'm done, you're going to think I'm your messiah. It'll become messianic. And all the while, all I'm doing is pulling your life force to me. I'm a narcissist. And that's the nature of a narcissist. It's the big real parent of the vampire archetype. I don't know my unique core grace-filled centered soul self. No one ever taught me what that was. I was from the womb shamed and made to feel I was never going to be enough or not enough, most notably by my father, perhaps. And so my whole life becomes a chasing to get back to that center. And you know what? Just like a black hole, I'm not a sun. I don't radiate light out. I don't give off energy and illumine people and nourish and grow things. No, I take. I'm a black hole. I actually am so powerful, I absorb light into me, including yours. Now that's mega light dimmer. And what they're after is that's the narcissist complex. How do you handle that? I'm going to tell you straight up, get away from their event horizon as soon as you can. You will never crack that code. Get out. The narcissist complex, I think, probably is one of the most difficult to ever deal with in somebody. Because to admit one's a narcissist or has a narcissistic tendency requires self-esteem. And that's the one thing a narcissist has little of. That's why they need your energy. So the best shadow move there is get the heck off that dance floor. Get out of that pole. And yeah, while you're walking away, ask yourself why you ended up in that orbit in the first place. It's a very wise shadow inventory to take and do it with a lot of love. But a narcissist, just like the vampire, they're seducer archetypes. They seduce you into it. The vampire is a seductionist. So they look for a way to flatter you or appease a fear or whatever it is to seduce you into their field. And as soon as you start to get some power to get ready to get out of there, the seduction's back on. This is the nature of the dynamics of this pattern. So, yeah, the light dimmer's true issue. I mean, for our times, and it's then there's just the classic, simplifying this down. I berate and make you feel bad because it lifts me up to do that. So while I'm the bully punching you in the face and calling you a name, I don't have to deal with my own inability to be with my own feminine side and my own insecurities. I get to act this out and victimize you, take power from you. That's why if you ever really do stand up to a bully, that's the last time you'll be dealing with them most of the time. Because they can't prey on you anymore. They can't get the bump off you anymore. You're actually now, you're too much of a fight. They don't really want to fight. They don't go for someone that can actually fight them. Or they don't play directly in front of you. They backstab and go behind the scenes and gossip and say crap. Anyway, I could go on and on about that. I hope that was somewhat helpful, but what I would say is this. Listen, whenever you're dealing with a light dimmer, it is a both and proposition of perspective. You've got to understand what dynamics are driving them and what dynamics keep you in their orbit. But you really do have to have both kind of in motion, because the gravitational pull of a narcissist, a full-blown one especially, is strong, especially if they have any real sense of exterior power like money or title or, position in society. Those are the ones that are really, really, really dangerous and really oftentimes hard to get away from. Anyway, I could go on and on. Love it. All right. What do we got? Give me some more questions. This is fun. Anyone triggered? Tiffany, Kim, are you triggered? Oh, every trigger is an opportunity to shift. So I always, want to say that. Yes, Anna, I bet. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Okay. Any other questions, everybody? Where's my juice? It's in my lap. Okay. Well, looks like I think I just answered some questions for you guys. Well, listen, I'll see you next Friday. Now, next Friday, Social Live. Mate, you're triggered, Joni. Okay. It's okay to be triggered. Really. Let's talk about what to do when you're triggered. Let me just finish on that, because retrograde energies are very triggering. And actually, I actually think eclipses can be incredibly triggering anyway. It's the summoning up of lots of energetics that may have been dormant before. And how does something that's dormant before come to the surface? Through a trigger. So how do you handle triggering? Well, there's a few ways that we can handle it, and I'm going to name them, and then I'm going to point you to the ones I think that are most useful. Now, lots of us, when we're triggered, our first instinct is to act from the trigger. So if someone calls you a name, you call them a name back. Or you cower down and you deflate. Your power just guts out of you, right? And when I say call you a name, I'm kind of being metaphorical about just like any kind of interaction with someone where they're there to disempower you, berate you, these sorts of things. I need to start pulling my shades when it gets this time of day. I'm going to move back. So if you're triggered, take a breath. Just take a minute. And let's talk about what triggering is. It is pulling up something from the shadow, from the unconscious in you, into awareness. And there's two different types of triggering. I actually talked about this last week. There's traumatic triggering. And that's what most of us know. It's something happens to you that pulls up out of your interior a past trauma, a past disempowering experience, a past violation, a past embarrassment or humiliation you went through. And every trigger of this nature, of traumatic triggering, I think gives you the possibility of bringing more love to your system and more love to yourself. Now, I gotta go mystical here for a minute, because the way you do that isn't just through affirmations and whatever. It's truly through soul prayers. Soul prayers to me are this. They are an engagement with the divine that is a direct connection and a direct and moves with direct relationship. And it's a soul prayer because it really does come from a spiritually mature understanding of yourself. So let me give you two examples here. If someone were to come in and violate you and call you names and humiliate you in front of people, and your prayer was, dear Lord, smite them down, take them out, make them feel as bad as I do. Okay, that's not a soul prayer. Just FYI, it's fine. It's a vent prayer. but it's not a soul prayer because it's full of vengeance. It's full of Hammurabi's code. It's not about you healing anything. It's not about you becoming a sovereign that isn't pushed off their center by a name or someone trying to embarrass you. In fact, you got a shadow dance Aikido moves where you just twist them around and flip them back out the door. Soul prayer is this. This person just really triggered me. This hits into some really core things I went through as a child. And and I'm time warping universe. I'm time warping God. I'm time warping. I'm back in that 5-year-old experience right now. I feel it in my body. My nervous system's going haywire. I can't breathe. Help me. Help me right now. I need your help right now. I can't do this with my own power. I don't have enough power right now for this experience. I need your power to come into me right now. That's a soul prayer. It's admitting power and powerlessness. It's standing just naked in vulnerability. It's owning what you do feel. And it's taking that to God or whatever the divine means to you and saying, I need you to help me with this right now. Because I can't pull it off myself. Soul prayers make you cry. Yeah. And let me tell you what, that kind of prayer, you're probably feeling the power of it right now. It is so freaking powerful. And sometimes you can say a soul prayer too that's about protection. Hey, I'm being beaten up here energetically, psychically. Give me a light shield. Give me a buffer so I can get to some safety and figure out how this person pierced my armor. And the armor that I do need, not armor off my heart. No, this is real. We do need protection. You do need SPF. This person's got me sunburning. So I need immediate help. I need a divine intervention. And then I need to attend to, on the other side of this, what got me so burnt up in the first place and why I was so, SPF 0 in a situation. So anyway, I could go on and on about that, but triggering, mystical triggering, that's different than traumatic triggering. And this is something I discovered in teaching classes and also in myself and in readings. And that is, mystical triggering is when you see the holism of another being or your own holism being violated. And out of that, you get a rush of anger. You get a rush of anger that has instruction in it, like, go get that animal before it gets one more kick. Go, stand up to that parent that's berating their child in that grocery store right now. Go help that Asian person that's getting, a hate crime on them for being Asian. Go. It's just that quick, thing in you. It's a metaphysical warrior that comes online that says, oh, no. Not on my watch, not in front of me. And I'm going to, it instructs you. And here's the key. You're in present time. In mystical triggering, you're in present time. And it usually has some kind of call to action, whether that's verbally confront somebody with what they're doing or physically stop something that's going on, because it's violating the holism of some other person, being, or it's just like, I can't, no. And I don't think that, I think in the spirituality self-help community, there can be a tendency to shame all triggering. And I don't think any of that's useful, because either trigger is instructional. Either trigger, whether mystical or traumatic, offers healing, offers a chance to honor holism more. Either one. There's no usefulness in making ourselves wrong for our triggers. And if you're doing this in a way that's powerful for you, when you're triggered, you won't go make that person wrong for triggering you. In the mystical triggering, you don't make the person wrong. You correct the action and get the person being harmed to safety. Then there's a difference. There's a difference between standing up for something and addressing a situation from soul esteem. Hey, we all have value, but your behavior's effed up. I ain't playing with you. Stop it. You're violating that child. You're violating that animal. You're whatever. But there's never a sense of you worthless human being. What do you, no, that's against mystical law. There's no such thing as a worthless human being. That's an inconvenient truth. I feel it. Trust me, but it's still true. If you're in your power and you're dealing with triggering, you're dealing with even traumatic triggering, and if you then want to make the violator wrong from a moral point of view of their soul, there's one thing to hold someone account for their actions, and that is necessary and useful to have a civil society and for us to move around in a sense of safety and live our lives and have a destiny. But when we start to go to moral territory, you're violating mystical law. You are. You know, people do really effed up stuff out of their own pain. I've had an abusive alcoholic father. I know. But I never saw my father morally bankrupt or as an evil guy. I saw him as a man in pain, acting out pain. Because that's what was true. So when it comes to triggering, I think you can lose your center when you get caught up in the triggering, in the victim mentality of our culture that says, let's just, morally judge and hang this person now. Instead of let's completely address the violation and adjudicate appropriately so all of us in society are safe from that happening from that person again. So that means, hey, 40 years in prison, okay. We'll lock you up with love in our hearts, and we'll lock you up with a sense of we need to, as a society, come to understand what about us generates you. Why do we have these things? And what is going on in social patterns that generates abuse, that generates violation? That's where we can actually heal it. So anyway, when you're dealing with triggering, I would say keep it tight. Stay in your power. Love yourself. This is about you and your own process and your system and not judging it. It is telling you something important, whether that's go back in time and heal, get yourself in present time, or hey, take action now. That person's holism is being violated. Soul prayer and go. I've done that many times. But I have a little bit of an activist to me, if you couldn't tell. So anyway, I would just caution anyone making triggering wrong, whatever triggering it is. Be with it. Let it guide you. Ask it, hey, what do you need me to see? Where's my power pivot? Sometimes your power pivot is addressing that violator and saying, listen, you violated me and you need to take responsibility for that in your own way whenever you can. I can't make you do that. But we're done. Anyway, okay, I want to end on a little lighter note. So just don't have any light questions. Yes. Oh, some of you are crying. Oh, you're making me cry again. I got to get through the rest of this, y'all. Lydia, okay, I'll take this question and we'll finish. Lydia Polshinga. I have a question. Let me put this on here because it's a Mercury Retrograde question. I like it. I have a question. Would the 26th be a good day to launch a new program? That's the day of the eclipse, everybody. About doing this shadow work. Yes. I think it's fantastic. Absolutely. Lydia, your question is fabulous because it's outside of all the superstition. Now, what I would say, Lydia, is what I would do is, launch. But what I would also do is leave a lot of space for a lot of shifting in the next weeks of the Mercury retrograde on how you would maybe tweak the program. Sometimes, folks, we have to just get into the dirt and into the field of putting ourselves out there and our work out there to understand what needs tweaked, what we need to shift. We can't get to that data in theory. You have to get to it in practice. So a lot of times a retrograde, I'm launching a podcast during this retrograde. Now, look, this is a great example along the lines of Lydia. So Lydia, absolutely. But I'm watching a podcast, and let me tell you about this podcast for a minute, because it's a perfect example of what I just told Lydia. Any 2D superstitious astrologer might say, well, that's a horrible time to launch it. I think it's the best time. Because my podcast itself is countercultural. I want to teach you about intuition and the way I've come to know it as a skill of the soul, and reverse thought about it for you. That's retrograde. That's Mercury. I want to reverse how you think about intuition. I want to reverse how you think about astrology. Most of my teachings involve a lot of thought reversal. So for me to launch something that's going to be about a reversal of how people think about intuition is perfect to do during a retrograde. That's the energetics itself. And if you understand that, and you're like, I am actually, my whole podcasts are embodying the alchemy of what retrogrades are, which is a breaking down of how you think about things, Mercury retrogrades anyway, and organizing that around something new. So if you're doing something, in perhaps, launching something, whatever, that is under that umbrella of energetics, well, that's what the retrograde is. It's almost really the most brilliant time to do it. And in fact, I would say a lot of my courses launched during a retrograde, because a lot of them are exactly that. They take people in to themselves to undo patterns, ways of thinking, perceiving, and reorganize themselves around new power, new perceptions, and new ways of seeing. So I hope that was helpful. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. We got into some stuff this time. I've got a new puppy I got to go let out of his crate. I'm surprised he hasn't been whining already. So I'll see you all next Friday. Could be me doing a live stream of my podcast. I don't know yet. I got to see how I can get things done and get my schedule back on track after a broken shoulder and all the other stuff I've been through. So lots of love to you. Really spend some time. No matter what comes up in any of these cycles, baseline, love yourself no matter what. Always bring more love to whatever you're going through. We've certainly got down how to bring more judgment, right? And more shame and more perfectionism. So how's that working? How about trying something different? Loving yourself no matter what. Being with yourself no matter what. Don't abandon you no matter what. No matter how messy you get, no matter how triggered you get. When you're triggered, that's when you need to be there for yourself most of all. As soon as you start judging yourself for your triggering, or judging yourself for your messy process, or judging yourself for making quote unquote mistakes, I want you now to know that's a form of self-abandonment. And your inner child is freaking out when you do that, because there's no one taking care of them. So my last gift to you for these cycles is stay with yourself no matter what. Be unconditional. I know it's foreign. We're not taught that, but give it a try anyway. I will see you in a week. Namaste. And share this with whomever you think it'll help, please. I think there's a lot in here that'll help lots of people. Hi, Lori King. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Namaste.